LL Nation, what's good this morning? Back with you guys. Lucky Lucky Podcast. I'm Shaun Davis at SB2 Mics. I have no clue if Malik is going to be joining us. I have no clue. So I got tired of waiting, and I'm like, yo, let's do this, LL Nation. Let's talk some Notre Dame football, Super Bowl. Today's topic, today's show is all about whether or not Notre Dame has a star problem. Does Notre Dame have a star problem? And we'll get to it. We are brought to you and featured by Onora Whisky. Go to OnoraWhisky.com. It's that premium American whiskey, OnoraWhisky.com. As always, we'll get to the petty train for you guys. Couple of nominees, without a doubt. Might talk a little NBA with you guys. It's trading, big day. Big day. 3 o'clock Eastern time. It's the NBA trade deadline. I don't think anything big is going to happen, but we'll get into that. But the topic for today, as I said before, does Notre Dame have a star problem? Does Notre Dame have a star problem? So let's get to it. Interesting video that came via 247 Sports. I believe the guy name was Bud Elliott. I'm not sure what his particular job is over at 247, but he put out an interesting video yesterday concerning the Super Bowl and the connection to 4 and 5 stars that play in the Super Bowl. So take a listen to this. Bud Elliott, 247 Sports, and then we'll get right into it.
You might have seen some cool breakdowns on social media showing the star ratings of the players in the game. And it's really neat to go and look and see who was a 2-star or an unrated recruit who's made a name for himself. Take Cooper Kupp, an unrated recruit. Now he's maybe one of the best receivers in the NFL. And that's neat. And it kind of gives you the idea that maybe recruiting rankings don't matter because they can't measure heart. And as long as you try hard, you'll make it to where you want to go. And trying hard is really important, right? Nobody wants to knock work ethic. But those graphics really are pulling a trick of omission because they're not telling you how many 2-stars are not playing in the game. They're not telling you how many 0-stars are not playing in the game, like probably you and everybody else at your Super Bowl party. I had the exact numbers on this. So every year, there are 5,000 new scholarship players in college football. About 1 in 150 will be rated 5 stars. About 1 in 13 will be rated 4 stars. Another 30% will be rated as 3 stars. And the remaining 60%, they're your 2-star and unrated crowd. So based on those ratios, you would expect maybe 1 player starting in the Super Bowl to be rated as 5 stars. And yet, I look at the roster and I see 9 rated as 5 stars, including Matt Stafford, Cam Akers, and Joe Mixon. So maybe you'd think, 3 or 4 4-star rated players? Nope. 14 this year, including Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, his buddy he likes to throw to from LSU. So while being a 2-star is not necessarily a guarantee you won't make it in the Super Bowl, and certainly not all 4 and 5 stars make it, your odds are a heck of a lot better. So if you're a 2-star, hit the books hard because you'll probably be watching the Super Bowl, not playing it.
So that's Bud Elliott, 247 Sports. LL Nation, what do you guys think about what he said? Now, the interesting thing he talked about was the number of 4 and 5 stars that actually ended up in the Super Bowl, right? On both rosters, the number is close to 58. But then he talked about the number of 5 stars. We know in each class, they might give you 30 to 35 stars out of the ESPN top 300. And then everybody else is pretty much 4 stars, and it's 13%. And then 30% goes to 3 stars. And then after that, it's 2-star and unranked. So you really think about this, Bud Elliott is not telling us anything new, right? If you want a good team, you want a good program, it's best that you recruit 4 and 5 stars, right? In the midst of those 4 and 5 stars, the 9 players he talked about that are 5 stars, the Von Millers, the Matthew Staffords, are what I would consider can't misses, right? Joe Burrow was, if I'm not mistaken, like a 4 or 5-star, eventually went to a 4-star. You just had Jamar Chase was a 5-star. You have guys that you just know can't miss. I mean, guys like We've yet to see a guy like Justin Fields develop, but Justin Fields, Trevor Lawrence, Matthew Stafford when he came out, Deshaun Watson. These are guys you can see from the time they touched the football, they were better at the game than everybody else. And once they get to the professional ranks, it's really all about going to the right team, going to the right program. Look at Trevor Lawrence right now. Trevor Lawrence is much better than what he showed, but there was so much dysfunction in Jacksonville that I'm sure as soon as he gets a solid foundation, coaching staff around him with the plan, you'll start to see what Trevor Lawrence has shown us 3 years at Clemson and 4 years in high school. It's the same thing with Deshaun Watson and great players that are 5 stars. It's funny because if you go to Alabama, you talk to Alabama fans, and this is interesting because I want to bring this up because I think it correlates to the 2023 Notre Dame class in a way, because we know that 23 class for Notre Dame is primarily defensive when it comes to recruits that they have committed right now. So when you think about that, most Alabama fans will say that everything turned in 2008, in the 2008 recruiting class. But the recruit that they turned to say this is the one that built the foundation for everything to come after was not the great linebackers they had in their class. They had some great linebackers like Dylan Moses, Cody, Marcel Darius. But the guy that they feel like turned everything around and changed the narrative in recruiting for Alabama was Julio Jones. And I think Notre Dame is in a similar situation. Like Notre Dame has always been able to get great linebackers, 4 or 5-star defensive linemen. But Notre Dame's going to have to get that 5-star quarterback. They just have to. They just have to. Dante Moore this year, they just offered 2024 Jaden Davis on Tuesday. It came out Wednesday, and that kid is phenomenal. So they have a great chance of getting Dante Moore. We've said that constantly. Tommy Rees has done an incredible job. Let me reiterate for the 1,000th time, because people always talk about it, try to say we always take digs at Tommy Rees. For the 1,000th time on this podcast, Tommy Rees is doing an incredible job of building relationships on the offensive side of the ball for the 2023 class. Absolutely amazing job. They have a great opportunity to land Dante Moore. Great opportunity. 2024, they're starting that relationship with Jaden Davis. It's going to be a tough get, but the relationship's built in the Carolinas. Getting somebody like Jalen Sneed out of the Carolinas gives you the doorway to walk into that area of the country and to be able to pull a young quarterback like that away from Clemson, Georgia, Alabama, and all the southern schools that are going to be nipping at his coattail. So, I mean, Tommy Rees is doing an incredible job. 5-star quarterback, number 1 quarterback in the 2024 class, already offered by Notre Dame. Notre Dame getting in on him very early. So there's not so much, and we've discussed this as well. Notre Dame will never get to the point where they have 19 5-star players on their roster. They're not going to do that. They're not about to pull the NIL BS that Texas A&M is doing, and all of a sudden they're acting like when everybody's throwing rocks at them, they're barking. They're barking because they're getting hit, and they know it. So we're not trying to hear that. Notre Dame doesn't have that opportunity. Notre Dame is going to struggle to probably get up to 8 or 9 on a roster. But that 8 or 9 makes a ton of difference if it's at the right position. If it's Dante Moore and Carnell Tate coming out in 23, that makes your team so much better moving forward, right? So does Notre Dame have a star problem? Let's chew on this for a second. Cal Hamilton might end up being a top 3 pick in the NFL draft. Cal Hamilton being at Notre Dame, I think bodes well for a guy like Adon Schuler. Bodes well for a guy like Peyton Bowen to commit to Notre Dame. But let's be real. One of the major reasons that they committed and that Notre Dame became number one on their list is because at the time, it was Marcus Freeman, the defensive coordinator at the time, that got them to come to Notre Dame and got them to want to play for Notre Dame. So you slide him to head coach, and that's why the defensive recruiting class has continued to pick up steam. You get a kid like Christian Gray, who kind of hit pause in December because of what went on at Notre Dame. He was ready to commit. He hit the pause button and said, you know what, let me take my time. And now you have him, Micah Tees, and other guys that are closely connected. Still love Notre Dame. Notre Dame is definitely at the top of their list, but they're going to look over the landscape. And then these were guys that Marcus Freeman identified really early, offered, and Notre Dame, honestly, was the best offer on the table. Since then, of course, with certain staff leaving and going to LSU, LSU comes into the picture. A guy like Carnell Tate, here comes Alabama. Christian Gray, Riley gets to USC. All of a sudden, here comes USC. So now you have more top programs coming in, offering these guys and trying to get these guys to visit. Ultimately, on the defensive side of the ball, Notre Dame's going to do tremendously in the 2023 class. They're going to be phenomenal in that class. It might end up being the greatest defensive class that Notre Dame has ever signed. They already signed one of the best linebacking groups to ever come to Notre Dame. Ever. Speedy, versatile. One linebacker played quarterback. The other one played wide receiver, tight end, along with linebacker. Jalen Sneed, his senior year, played safety at 230 pounds. Now he gets to focus on linebacker. Now Nolan Ziegler gets to focus on linebacker. Now Josh Burnham gets to focus specifically at linebacker. The talent that they have at that position is going to upgrade that room. We've also talked about how the quarterback room needs to be upgraded, how the wide receiver room needs to be upgraded, which some people might push back at because they look at a guy like Will Fuller. Well, Will Fuller, 3-star, bumped up to a 4-star, got in Notre Dame, got in late on him out of Philly. Malik's talked about remembering his visit and how everybody specified, like, we need this guy. We have to get this guy. So Cal Hamilton, top 3, possibly in the NFL draft. Cal Hamilton, man, for a long time was a 3-star. He was a 3-star. Then he got bumped up to a 4-star by certain publications. But as soon as he got to the campus in fall camp, he wasn't an early enrollee. He comes in, he gets to campus, and he's in practice, and he's a ball hawk. All of a sudden, he's making plays. He's all around. First time he steps on the field, Notre Dame Stadium, pick 6. It's like he's just a special kid. I don't care what star you put on him. He has an innate ability to play the game of football and see things at a speed that other people just don't have. It's God-given. It's God-given. And it's very easy for guys like that to slip through the cracks when it comes to recruiting. Lucky Lefty podcast, Shaun Davis right here. Let's continue to talk. Give me a second. Let's continue to talk about whether or not Notre Dame has a star problem. Let's see. Will Chesney. Thank you for tapping in this morning. Saban said Julio changed it because he was the best player, but also the hardest worker. When your best player is your hardest worker and motivation, that's how you win chips. He was also the bridge. All of that is true. He was also the bridge to start the change of the offense opening up and having big plays in the passing game. And all of a sudden, you started seeing other receivers wanting to come to Alabama. Big-time receivers didn't want to go to Alabama because they knew Alabama was going to run the ball 40 to 50 times a game. Julio changed all of that. He changed every aspect of that. Notre Dame was in that position. You might not like it, but when C.J. Williams decommitted, he did an interview with 247, And he basically said, look, if you're a running back, you go to Notre Dame. They're going to have a great offensive line, and the running backs are productive at Notre Dame. Wide receivers, on the other hand, you really don't know where you're going to fit in. Why? Because there's no history of wide receivers really being able to do that thing in Notre Dame. Yeah, you've had great wide receivers, to have great seasons. But to have the ball spread around and have a trio like Devontae Smith, Jalen Waddle, and Jerry Jeudy, what they had back in 2019, man, we haven't had that in Notre Dame. We haven't had 3 guys go over 50 receptions in a season in college. And I'm gonna be honest, man, I don't even know if Tommy Rees even has that mindset to go out and recruit for that type of system. But if you get a guy like Dante Moore, you're definitely going to throw the ball a lot more than you have been with guys like Jack Cohn, Ian Book. And I know everybody's laughing because, hey, Jack Cohn threw the hell out of the ball in that Fiesta Bowl. Man, it was like him and Tommy had a deal before the game to get him to the NFL. Like, this is your NFL tape. Go out there. I'm going to give you every opportunity to make it happen and make a roster in the NFL. Because they totally abandoned the running game. But we knew the offensive line was in trouble. Even though they did a great job pass protection, they were in trouble with the running game. They couldn't get it done. So, P-Dub, thank you for tapping in as always. Indy doesn't need 5 stars. Indy needs 2 to 3 of them. I disagree, but if you only had 2 to 3 5-stars, you're not winning a national championship. That's just my opinion. They've had 2 5-stars, 2 to 3 5-stars. They haven't been able to get it done. I'm sorry, that's what he's listed at, Brent. I can only give you the numbers that he's listed at. Wayne Miller, I appreciate you. Yes, absolutely. It's got to be at the key positions, right? Especially the way the game has. I think one of those positions is definitely linebacker. And I think that's the first thing that Marcus Freeman saw when he put on the film, when he became a defensive coordinator, is that the lack of range, flexibility, and speed, honestly, at the linebacker position. And he immediately identified that and began to offer people that the Notre Dame staff would have never offered if he wasn't in the building. A guy like Jalen Sneed, Josh Burnham, Nolan Ziegler, you go and get those versatile guys that are really athletes, great athletes that play the position, and now they get an opportunity to totally focus. I think Burnham, Ziegler, and Jalen Sneed all talked about that when they met with the media, just being excited about finally being able to focus on one position, and that's the linebacker position. It's going to be a great opportunity for them to get on the field. And Jalen Sneed was honest. He was like, yo, I'm trying to get on the field early. And went out and just said, I'm the fastest linebacker here. I'm faster than the previous linebackers already. I know that. I'm trying to get on the field early and get in the rotation. And so that's the confidence that's exuding from all of those guys because they believe in their talent and their athletic ability. If they can learn the scheme and learn the game, which is very dependent on linebackers. It's a very linebacker-dependent system that Marcus Freeman runs. If they can really get up to speed, they can have an impact. Let's see. Juan. CJ Williams basically said he isn't as fast as Fuller or as big as Claypool, so he doesn't know where his game fits as Notre Dame. Goes right to my point. Yeah, if you have a big guy, a feature receiver, you can put up numbers at Notre Dame. But what about the other guys? What about the second and third guy? Are they going to be stuck with 25 to 30 receptions? Or does Notre Dame develop a system where you have a guy that has 50, another guy that has 55, and another guy that might have 60? Notre Dame doesn't throw the ball enough to produce like that. And they haven't shown that. The Sunset Kid, thank you for tapping in. Stars matter. And I'm not talking about John Bon Jovi. That's what's up. Yo, look, we said before, the cream rises to the top. The cream rises to the top. And you can't expect to just be a program built simply on development. Like every program develops. Every program develops. It's almost like, and this is one of the biggest things. I don't like when people take less talented people or less athletic people and try to make it seem like they work harder than athletic people. Right? Michael Jordan worked harder than anybody. LeBron James works harder than anybody. And they're athletically gifted. So work hard, this just doesn't come in play just because you don't have the same level of athletic talent. Anybody can work hard. And that's why I'm not a big proponent of sticking my chest out saying, well, I predicted that this guy was going to be great. I don't have anything to do with someone becoming great. That's based upon the work they put in and the God-given ability that God gave them. Like Bud Elliott talked about Cooper Kupp. Coming out, Cooper Kupp, Senior Bowl, Combine, speed wasn't there. A lot of people were like, man, even though he was the Heisman, I forget what level he played at, but he won the Heisman for that level. Or he was up for the Heisman for that level. And I remember my guy, Jared Payton, who presented him the trophy because the trophy is named after his father, Walter Payton, was like, man, I was talking to this guy, and there's no way I thought he would make a roster in the NFL. He was like, I'm standing there talking to him. I'm like, man, this is the dude that's up for this award. And here he is, one of the best receivers in the NFL, probably as a 2-star, maybe a 3-star. He put in that work. That's on him. He put it in. So nobody can sit up here and say, oh, man, because I identified him at the Senior Bowl. So let me beat my chest and say, I told you so. Man, you do. You guess on some, you win. You guess on some, you lose. Has nothing to do with your prediction. And that's why you put these 5 stars and 4 stars on players, you're taking a guess. You have generational talent, like the guys we mentioned earlier, the Von Millers, the Matthew Staffords, the Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrences, that everybody can sit in the stands and say, yep, he's got the goods. If he doesn't get injured or doesn't get into trouble off the field, more than likely, it's a great chance that he's going to end up being great on every level he ever plays on. So we have to be careful when we start talking about 5 and 4 stars, impactful players. What Notre Dame has to get is 1 or 2 generational talents. 1 or 2 generational talents. Now, Cal Hamilton, even though he wasn't a 5-star, he was a generational talent. Who else on the Notre Dame roster was a generational talent? That's my question right now. Hit me up in the chat. Who else over the last 2 years on the Notre Dame roster was a generational talent that you say, you know what? More than likely, he's going to the NFL, first-round pick, and he's going to be great. Tell me who. Tell me who. I'm not talking about guys that are great, developed like Owusu, Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah. Developed great. He's going to be a great player, Pro Bowler in the NFL. You didn't know that coming in. He was developed into that play. High 3, 4-star, coming out of high school. Played a lot of defensive backfield. Ultimately ended up at linebacker, rover position. It suited him well. He became a star. I thought he should have been taken in the first round. He dipped, but he dipped into a great situation. Playing behind that defensive front in Cleveland. Very good linebacker core, and he was able to shine. So it's not so much about, and I agree with the earlier statement, in a sense that we don't need to get to the point where we're trying to stack up 5 stars with Texas A&M, Georgia. Look, Notre Dame, currently constructed, has proven twice that they can compete physically with Georgia on a football field. They had a 4th quarter lead in Notre Dame Stadium, and they had an opportunity to beat them in between the hedges without all the 5 stars. Notre Dame was right there on the cusp. But you know what the difference was? You know what the difference was and why Notre Dame was able to compete with Georgia? Because Georgia does not have a generational quarterback. You're talking about Fromm as a freshman when they played him in Notre Dame Stadium, and then Fromm later on as a junior. And let's just be honest. Fromm was man, I think he was a 4-star quarterback coming out of Georgia. Solid, multi-sport athlete. But he was a game manager at Georgia. Now, you take the same amount of talent and you put a generational quarterback or a 5-star quarterback in control of that, like Mac Jones. Now that same talent is blowing you out. That's the difference. You face Georgia with Jake Fromm, you can stay in the game because you can hang with them in the trenches. But you go to Alabama, and now is Mac Jones, Heisman Award winner at the helm with the same talent. You get blown out. And that's the difference. If Notre Dame can land that generational quarterback, that 5-star quarterback, it closes the gap. It closes the gap. And now you start attracting 5-star wide receivers. Now you already have Harry Heastand, big-time offensive lineman. And the college is just like the NFL. If you have the offensive line, you have the quarterback, you can go get a 3-star running back to produce. You can. Now, you'll probably bring in 4 and 5-star running backs because they see the offense. But you can go get a productive 3-star running back when you have talent like that. If I'm not mistaken, I think Brian Robinson, who was a running back, he's from Tuscaloosa, but Brian Robinson was like a high 3-star, 4-star. No, he wasn't Najee Harris, but he was a darn good player in the SEC for Alabama this year. So that's just something to think about. Does Notre Dame ultimately, based upon that, I don't want to overreact, because a lot of people are saying the stars matter. The stars matter is like saying you like a movie because somebody else rated it 4 stars. I'm going to tell you something. There are some of the worst rated movies in the world. Some of the worst, some of the movies that got the worst ratings are some of the best movies for me. I don't know about you. Harlem Nights got like 2 stars when it came out. The critics ripped it to shreds. And I will watch Harlem Nights every time I flip past it and I see it on TV, I'm stopping. It's a classic. To me, Paid in Full, a classic. To me, other people might watch it and say, man, this movie is trash. Guess what? It's a classic to me. And that's what we have to find out. What's going to be classic to Marcus Freeman and his coaching staff? Don't worry about doing what Alabama, Ohio State, Texas A&M, and Georgia are doing. What's a classic to you? Everybody else might rate it a little bit lower, but what do you see in it? Can you get the Kyle Hamiltons? Bring them in, the ones that slip through the cracks because you're Notre Dame. Get them on the field and then sprinkle it in with a Jalen Sneed. Sprinkle it in with a Dante Moore. Sprinkle it in with a Carnell Tate. And now you got a nice little gumbo. That's a natty gumbo that you can get stewed. You can stir the pot with at Notre Dame. Like, we don't have to be like everybody else. We can continue to find those diamonds in the rough. We continue to develop at a high level. Because, darn it, there's nothing wrong with going and getting a Dante Moore. There's nothing wrong with going and get a Brandon Ennis. Nothing wrong with going to get a Carnell Tate. Nothing wrong with going to get a Malik Elzy. Nothing wrong with going to get a Tyrese Williams. Nothing wrong with that. Go get those guys too, because they belong in Notre Dame. And I'm happy that Marcus Freeman and his coaching staff, they're happy and they're excited to make sure that these kids know Notre Dame is a place that you need to come. My guy Guinea Pig Clips, there isn't a talent gap between a 4-star number 36 player and a 5-star number 35 player. I totally agree. I'll go even deeper than that. You probably find some guys in the 60 to 70 range that are just as good. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right? So you're depending on guys that work for it. And I'll tell you now, ESPN is understaffed when it comes to high school football. They don't have enough eyes on high school football to really go out and rate. So they're getting things from other people that they know, other connections at other publications in each region that watch the game to give them feedback. They don't have enough people really going around to keep their eyes on all of these players and properly rate them. They don't. Lucky Lefty Podcast. Let's see, who else? You guys are giving me a lot today. I appreciate it. Clausen with 2022 D would be something nice with Golden Tate. That's what I'm saying, Logan, but who else? Like, just having that one dominant receiver is just not enough. Who else besides Golden Tate? Who else besides Golden Tate? You need to have more than one dominant receiver at any point in time to have a great offense. Let's see, Wayne Miller. Brady Quinn put up stats with no defense. I don't know if Brady Quinn was a generational talent, though. I don't know if I would call Brady Quinn a generational talent at quarterback. Wayne Miller, How High is a great movie. How High is a great movie. I totally agree. Nikita 3000, talent is talent no matter the craft. It still has to be developed, and that talent still has to put in the requisite work to be great. But talent is talent. Yes, football can be cinematic. Absolutely, Will. Absolutely. I don't know what's going on. Is the screen freezing on you guys out there? I've seen myself freeze. Michael Mayer, and although early object estimate, Michael Mayer is not a generational talent. Come on, man. Look, I'll push back on that. He's not a generational talent. He drops the ball way too much, in my opinion, to be a generational talent. And I won't blame him because generational tight ends dominate the middle of the field, down the field. And maybe he hasn't had the quarterback to really hit the seam routes, but generational talents have to be able to dominate down the middle of the field. I know he can run the out routes. I know he can run the quick slants and everything across the middle short, but I need to see him making catches 20 yards down the field, in the middle of the field, in between the safeties, a little bit more consistent before I would consider him a generational talent. Just my opinion. Running back is the most useless 5-star you can recruit, period. I won't say the most useless. I mean, I understand what you're saying. Like I said, running backs, you can get them into a system and they can produce. But, if you can get a great one, get a great one. Like, I don't see anything wrong with getting a great player. If you can get a great player, get that great player. There's nothing wrong with that. Claypool, J Golden 44, we appreciate you. Claypool should have been thrown to more, unstoppable at times. Absolutely. They could have gotten him on the field much earlier in his career. And then that goes back to what he was being taught as well by his position coach. Because I think he's become a more well-rounded wide receiver in the NFL. Guys, give me a second. Trying to get rid of some stuff. And we're back. Cool. Lucky Lefty Podcast. Don't forget YouTube channel. Go subscribe. We're available at Apple Podcasts under A2S Network. Follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Lucky Lefty Pod. P-Dub. Man, you know what? Vampire in Brooklyn is low-key funny. Kadeem Hardison as the ghoul is funny. Eddie Murphy. I can rock with that. John Witherspoon is funny in that as well. I can rock with that. Brent Byers? No, man. I'm not with that. I don't want to keep recruiting 3 stars and depending upon that. I don't need to be a developmental program. Notre Dame is way too good as a brand to be known or looked at as a developmental program only. Like, I'm all for, because of the uniqueness of Notre Dame, I'm all for having the development part of the football program, but you have to go out and get generational talent. You're too good as a program not to. So that's a must. I agree. Movies are subjective, just like I believe most of recruiting, is subjective. You have your great recruiters, and I think your great recruiters, what makes someone great in recruiting is not so much seeing a guy that's obvious to everybody, but seeing a guy that not only fits with what you're doing, but is a talent beyond what others see. Like, you see something that no one else sees. That's something that the gifted recruiters can do. Because it's really not the slam dunks that they get. I mean, it is, because getting the generational talent is one thing, and that's really all about building relationship. But then the identification of the other players that you bring into to the program, to be able to see what they can become and how they can develop in your system, is very important as well. Jay Clampett Investment, Shaun, I'm sure you have said it. If you were to call it, do we land Dante Moore? Let me do percentages, right? Right now, if I gave his top 5 schools all percentages, I would put Notre Dame at about, now remember, this is out of 5 schools. I will put the percentages for Notre Dame right now probably at about 35% to land Dante Moore, meaning they're 35. I would probably put the next school at around 30, somewhere up in there. The Michigan schools are in it, but the better relationship, from what I've been told, is with Michigan State. But Michigan State just had a 4-star quarterback commit this week. I don't know how that impacts their class. I'm sure they still want Dante Moore. So don't read into that. Everybody that's in the game still wants Dante Moore. But I will say this. When you see schools going ahead and accepting the commit from a quarterback, they still want him, but I think everybody is aware of what we've been saying, and that is that Tommy Rees has done a fantastic job building a relationship with Dante Moore and other offensive recruits in the 23 class. That's it. That's all I can say. So I think Notre Dame will be right at the top of the list as far as percentage chances to land Dante Moore. That's basically what I'm saying. Let's see. Juan Lozada, classic to me is 5-star more defensive tackle, 5-star Keeley defensive end, 5-star more quarterback, 5-star wide receiver Tate. We can land those guys in 23. That's what I'm saying. You land those guys, you got 4 added to the roster, which will put Notre Dame, if I'm not mistaken, at, don't forget the offensive lineman you still have. Caden Proctor is a 5-star offensive lineman. I believe Charles Jagasaw is a 5-star as well. So Notre Dame has a chance to land. Currently, as they're ranked right now, we know people like to drop people down from 5 stars to 4 stars, especially when they commit to Notre Dame. Notre Dame legitimately has a chance to land at least 5 stars in 23. That's amazing. That's amazing. 5 stars. Don't forget Drake. Drake Bowen is another one. That's a 5-star. So Dante Moore is definitely a difference maker. Quentin Nelson was generational talent. Yes, I agree. He became a generational talent due to development at Notre Dame. He wasn't assigned out of high school. Yeah, everybody can see that this guy's a generational talent. So once again, Quentin Nelson is a byproduct of the development side of Notre Dame, which has been elite. We already know Notre Dame has been elite at developing players. Well, and Jeremy, thank you. Yes, Harlem Nights is fire. And you're right. Life is fire as well. Both of those movies are fire. Say that to Georgia. Have you seen the kid they have coming in and running back? I have. Notre Dame has had just as many productive running backs that are 3 stars. I mean, we're going to go by like yardage. Notre Dame, behind the offensive lines they had under Harry Heastand, performed just as well. The running backs performed just as well as the running backs at Georgia. Didn't go as high in the draft, but they produced just as well. Will, you know what? I'm going to have to go back and watch the film on that. Cole Kmet made more catches, and Cole left after his junior season. Cole Kmet made more catches deep downfield his last year than Mayer did low-key. I know one thing. Cole Kmet came back and dominated that Georgia game on the road. Very impressive. Very impressive. And that was with a quarterback that was scared out of his mind. Ian Book was scared out of his mind in that Georgia game on the road. Out of his mind. Keegan McLaughlin, thank you for tapping in with us. Your players have to fit your system and coaching and vice versa. Otherwise, you can have all the talent you want and it won't perform. They are and have been an elite developed quarterback away. It's a little bit more than that. You just can't throw an elite quarterback with the defensive backfield they've had over the last 6 to 7 years and say they've just been a quarterback away. I'll push back on that just a little bit. They've been a quarterback away from being in games, but I don't think they've been a quarterback away from winning. Or shall I say being more competitive. Juan Lozada, I see you. House Party. Very underrated. Matt Racky, I see you. White Man Can't Jump. Incredible. Thank you, Will. That's right. Hit the like button. Once again, Joe Montana was a developed generational talent. We understand that Notre Dame can develop guys into being generational talent. Who was a no doubt player that Notre Dame has signed in the last 10 years that even when they were in high school, before they stepped on campus, you were like, yep, that's a generational talent. I don't know if they've had that guy offensively. Defensively, they've had it. You know, you felt that way about Manti. You felt that way about Jalen. You didn't feel that way about Kyle Hamilton. Nobody, you heard stories about Kyle Hamilton in practice in fall camp, but when he committed, no one was like, oh my God, he's going to be the third overall pick in the 2022 NFL draft. That just wasn't the case. But he slipped through the cracks. And from day one, he was a difference maker. Who knew? He was a difference maker. So it can't be at 50%, guinea pig. It can't be at 50%. If you have 5 teams that he's deciding on, you 50%, and 5 other teams divvy up the other 50%, that's not realistic. That's why I put Notre Dame at about 35, maybe to 40. Because there's definitely another team that's right there with Notre Dame in the state of Michigan. I can definitely tell you that. So it's definitely going to be a fight. No one is at 50% in the race for Dante Moore. You want to start, Wayne wants to start a GoFundMe for Dante Moore. That's for his NIL. That's what's up. Marcus, I see you being petty. We'll get to that in the petty train. Lee Marie says Roquan Smith was a 4-star linebacker from small school in South Georgia. He was a 4-star who played from the beginning like a 5-star for Georgia and almost brought the Natty to Georgia in 2017. Oh, okay. Maybe you were trying to reference that as an example for not having to get 5 stars. What you just said, he was a 4-star that played like a 5-star. We've been saying that about Kyle Hamilton the entire show. That's the same thing. Diamond in the rough, small school, it happens. He developed into a 5-star. He was also surrounded by other 5-stars. It wasn't like he just made Georgia a great team by himself. Nick Chubb and the other 5-star running backs, 5-star offensive linemen, 5-star wide receivers, 5-star linebackers around him. That defense was phenomenal. It just wasn't Roquan Smith. Yeah, guinea pig. That's something that we've seen historically. You get 5-star kids that commit to Notre Dame, and by the end of the cycle, all of a sudden they're 4 stars. I agree with that. Shout out to Glenn Earl, number 19. Tough nose guy. Man, I remember, I think that was the Navy game where he had that big hit on 3rd down for the goal line stand. Absolutely. Jimmy Clausen was that 5-star guy that was supposed to be, the one that put them over the top. But when you have a deficiency in talent, like they did at that point in time in recruiting on the defensive side of the ball, I don't care what quarterback you have, it's definitely not going to happen. Yeah, I agree. Now, Michael Floyd did come in from day one. He was just so physically imposing, though. Michael Floyd was a beast, just physically imposing. He definitely. I don't know if EQ, I can't remember if EQ was a 5-star. I know his younger brother was a 5-star. I just can't remember if EQ was a 5-star. Will Chestnut. Let's see, you said Teo, Jalen, Jimmy, and Michael Floyd. I can go with those four. You felt like Jimmy was a generational talent, but he didn't end up being that. Teo and Jalen, I think Manti just went to the wrong system. Manti should have been a 4-3 quarterback. He went to a 3-4 system in San Diego where he had to be a lot faster than he was, and he just never fit in. He needed to be in front of two big bodies in a 4-3 system, and I think Manti's NFL career would have been totally different. With MSU getting a quarterback commit, that don't change things for Dante? No. Heck no. Heck no. It's like women that shop for their wedding dress and they buy one and they keep looking. Women, man, I've never seen so many brides get a dress, look great in it. Everybody's telling them they look great, and they still keep looking to find another one. And either end up selling the other dress or using it as a second dress at the after party or the reception. Happens all the time. It's like, and it's the same thing when you have a generational talent like that in your backyard. Heck no. Michigan has McNamara and J.J. McCarthy for the next 2 years in Ann Arbor. And they're still going after Dante Moore. And they're bringing in another big-time quarterback recruit this year. Like, when you have a generational talent like that, it doesn't matter who's in the room. You try and go get them. So that quarterback committed to Michigan State doesn't change a thing. Not in the eyes of Michigan State. Matter of fact, the kid, if I were the kid, I would have committed early too, just to get in the room, to make sure that I had a roster spot. Because who knows? If Dante Moore commits, Michigan State is probably like, man, we're good. We're not interested in you anymore. So for that kid and that family, it was very smart for them to say, yo, we want to commit now. And if you're Michigan State, what are you going to say? You offered the kid. He's saying he wants to commit right now. You would be bogus to say, you know what? Nah, we're going to hold off on accepting your commitment until we get Dante. So, it's a smart kid, him and his family. Very smart kid. I think, Brian, I think you're right. Max Redfield was a 5-star. He was a 5-star. Max's issues, he wasn't as fast as most people thought he was, and off the field issues. Just couldn't get right. Yeah, I think EQ, if I'm not mistaken, guys, EQ, let me take a second. I'm just pulling them up right now. He was a 4-star. Yeah, EQ was a 4-star. So that just goes to show you. Let's see. You know what? That's a good point, Brian. Yes, BVG had, I think Max probably plays much faster and much better under different coaching. That's a very good point. You have to think about that. That's another thing. You see a lot of 5-stars go to the wrong schools and the wrong coaches, and their entire career is just off track. Some can recover, some can't. But I agree with you. BVG was definitely a factor. I need to know, was Kelly the reason we never developed a quarterback when Bush, Chris, Keel, they were never developed right? Now, I will say this. At some point, like I said earlier, I give the credit to the players for putting in the requisite work to develop themselves into the players that they become. With that being said, you guys have said it multiple times in the chat, the coaching and the system that you go to, especially as a quarterback, it matters. It matters greatly. And that transition, take Patrick Mahomes, right? No one could really say that Patrick Mahomes was going to become the quarterback he's become on the NFL level. But if you really look at it, and the system he played in at Texas Tech, and the type of smallish receivers they had, and RPOs, it was a perfect transition to what Andy Reid was already running when he got there, even with Alex Smith at the quarterback. So it was a perfect system and a great coach for him to go under and learn, So all of that matters. All of that matters. And that's the challenge, right? That we're waiting to see if Tommy Rees can step up and be that guy. Not only can he get the 5-star, but really can he put him in a system that accentuates, right, everything that's great about that particular quarterback. Because the defense has been good enough. I think we all agree we want the defense to be much better, more dominant as far as a rush defense. And we've all talked about getting 2 space eaters in the middle at defensive tackle. I think everybody's been consistent saying that. And I think they're definitely trying to do that. With Jason Moore, Devon Houston, they're both off the East Coast. Moore is already, ready to be a space eater. Houston, I don't know if he's going to be a power end or if he's going to put on more weight to play up the middle. We'll see. We'll see. But that's something that's going to impact that rush defense being better immediately. Immediately. Before I move any further, shout out to the 5 guys that got invited to the NFL Combine. Tremendous opportunity. A guy like Kevin Alston needed it. He's going to get an opportunity. Straight line speed, I think Kevin Alston is going to do very well. I absolutely think he's going to run sub 4.5. The drills, I don't change the direction. He might struggle a little bit, but I think he's going to do well in straight line speed. And then everybody else, pretty much who I expected to go. I don't expect Cal. Cal might run the 40, but I think when you have a guy like that, they'll have their own private workout, come to the pro day, and that'll be good enough. I'll be interested in seeing if he does run, though. So congratulations to those guys on the invite. And then George Tackett's graduate transfer at the tight end position. Notre Dame's pretty deep at the tight end position. They have 2 redshirt freshmen coming behind Mayer. And then the 2 guys, Holden Stace and Eli Raridan, super athletic tight ends. So both of them are super athletic and fast. Eli Raridan coming off of the knee issue. So he might be back in time to really go through fall camp. And you probably won't see him maybe until after the 4th game. But the tight end position is going to be very deep. And then they're adding even more tight ends. A guy like Mac Markaway, possibly in the 23 class, and some of the other talented tight ends that they've offered. So once Michael Mayer leaves, tight end U just keep pumping. They just keep pumping in new talent and putting it out on the back end for the NFL. So nothing's changed. Let's see. So many indie players would be 5 stars, Hamilton, Nelson, etc. would be 5 stars on composite if it wasn't for ESPN. I can't just blame ESPN because I think 247 originally had Cal Hamilton. Cal Hamilton got bumped up late his senior season by most people. So by most people, he was like 3, high 3, and then got bumped up to a 4. Like people are viewing, and I'll say this, and this goes back to the show we did the other night. when we were talking about Dante Moore, Tommy Rees, and that whole thing with Mario Cristobal, which we love. Like, we had other people calling us soap opera and all of that. We love what we do. We spin it different. We have fun. We're not, I don't want to use a certain word, but, we don't just come on and just talk analytical football, this position and this guy, and I think this guy's going to do this. No, we have fun with it. We have fun with it. And as I said before, it was something that everybody else was reporting. So we just went with it and had fun with it. So, Mario Cristobal, I still see you. I see what you were trying to do, my man. You're not slick. You're trying to play chess. I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad at you. But I see you. I see what you were trying to do. And I see what you're doing by having Gaddis as the OC as well. I see you. But this is to my point. Because most people were confused. Look, back in January, Dante Moore went to a camp in the suburbs of Miami down in Florida. Immediately after the camp, he took a visit to Miami, where he took pictures with Miami greats, one of those being Ed Reed. Shortly after that, he got an offer from the University of Miami because Miami wasn't in on him. So, and like I said, there's only one person that I know of in ND podcast land that's had a consistent conversation with Dante Moore, and he just happens to be my co-host. So, there you go. Just connecting the dots and just letting you know. Mario Cristobal, you ain't slick. We see you, big homie. We see what you're trying to do. I can't knock the hustle. Cannot lock the hustle. I got a wet blanket. What's good with it? A lot of politics involved in those 4 or 5 stars. I'll say that especially when you're talking about big time programs, like De La Salle, Poly, big programs, historical programs out in California. Their guys are always going to be big time. The Catholic schools in like Pennsylvania, Ohio that are well known. You're absolutely right. If you're a really good player from one of those schools, more than likely you're going to have a high ranking based upon the history of that program. It's the same thing here in the state of Illinois. If Carnell Tate has stayed here, at his former high school, which was a PCL, a Catholic school, CCL school, he still would have been highly rated, even if he didn't go to IMG because Chicago Catholic League. So if you're a really good player coming from a big time high school program, your rating is going to be higher than if you went to a smaller school per se. Freezing pretty bad. I'm sorry to MW Jr., POJ Jaguars, that you hear about the Chicago Legends passing Coach Brooks. I did hear about that. And shout out to everyone in the Chicago area. Big time public league Final Four basketball tonight. UIC, 2 great games. I'm trying to go. I'm really trying to make it. First game is at 5 o'clock, featuring Whitney Young and Curie. And the second game is Simeon and Kenwood. Whitney Young, Curie, Simeon, and Kenwood, trying to make it. That's a dope Final Four. It's really the best 4 teams in the city this year. My squad, Morgan Park, we lost to Simeon in the quarterfinals. Weren't able to make it. But we'll see, man. We'll be back next year. Very young team. If you're in Chicago, that's the spot. You need to be at the UIC Pavilion tonight, 5 o'clock. First game, 7 o'clock. Second game. ND for life. Thanks for tapping in. Those stars are only as good as the person backing them up. Keep up the good work, Shaun. Love y'all, bro. Appreciate you. We love you too, LL Nation. ND for life. Thank you so much. Brian J. Irish. I felt like BK was holding the quarterback back. I always blame you for not learning the playbook. Like, how many years does it take for an ND quarterback to learn the playbook? Just let the player play and grow. I will say this. The greatest attribute of a teacher is flexibility, right? Because most teachers have a system or a style or a way that they want to teach, but the great ones are able to teach multiple ways to multiple students to get the best out of that particular student. And that's one thing that great guys like Nick Saban and other great coaches are able to do. They're able to win football games multiple ways, and they're able to teach young men how to grow and become the best guys and the best players that they can be without doing it just one way. BK was a one-way horse when it comes to coaching, in my opinion. His way or the highway. And when you have quarterbacks that might not fit into that, it's your job as the coach to develop them the best way they need to be developed. I don't think Brian Kelly was capable of doing that. I just don't. I think that was the biggest issue. Malik gonna reel in DM for ND. Book it. All right, Sunset Kid. That's what's up, man. So, thank you guys so much. We'll definitely be back tomorrow. We're supposed to have a special guest. I'm not sure. I'll check on that. We might go tonight. I'll keep you guys posted on that. Check the Twitter page and the Instagram page, and we'll let you know if we be back tomorrow or tonight for and another thing. You know what time it is.
Petticoat, petticoat, petticoat junction.
It's time to get petty.
Oh, we did a good job executing.
Are you upset with something?
And fire up the Petticoat Junction train.
I just don't like you.
You don't?
No.
What is today's petty historic Petty Junction?
Petticoat Junction. Petty Junction each and every day right here. Let's get to it. I'm throwing the entire NBA, specifically the Brooklyn Nets and the Philadelphia 76ers, on the petty train. Y'all getting on my nerves. Daryl Morey, Sean Marks, you're getting on my nerves, man. Do what needs to be done. Ben Simmons doesn't want to be in Philly. James Harden doesn't want to be in Brooklyn. I don't care the reasons. Get the trade done. Stop holding the entire NBA hostage. Other trades can get done because both of you guys want to act like you don't want to do what ultimately is going to get done. You should have done it before the season started. Now we're at the trade deadline, and you want to dance around like you're doing the waltz instead of doing the work to get the deal done. And if you don't get it done today, you're going to go into the offseason and pretty much be the only two people that want to work together to get a deal done for Ben Simmons. Stop being petty. Come on. Lincoln Riley, my man. Dude, you going round trip? We already gave you one ticket on the petty train weeks ago. Now you want to come back? You had the nerve to go on Colin Cowherd and to talk about you didn't take players from Oklahoma? You took players from the transfer portal? What are you talking about? What are you talking about? Like, man, look, nobody had a problem with the players leaving and going to USC. Nobody's knocking the game. Nobody's talking about you taking administrators. You pulled a power move. You got to USC. You got your money. You got the program you wanted. And you're in a good position to revitalize that program. But I need you to stop acting like you're innocent in this situation. You knew exactly what you were doing. You did it, so let it go. Just let it go. Those are my people for the petty train. So, Once again, don't forget, subscribe, YouTube. Hit the like button. Hit the like button. And also follow us at Lucky Lefty Pod. And we're available on Apple Podcasts at A2S Network. So, let's see. Matt Anderson says MSU is not in the running. Matt Anderson, you would be wrong. I don't know. I have a source that co-hosts this show. So you would be wrong. Matter of fact, I'll go as far to say the two most influential head coaching relationships are Marcus Freeman and Mel Tucker in this whole recruiting race. You can take that for what it's worth. I'm not saying Michigan State is going to get him, but those are the two the best relationships he has with head coaches, not offensive coordinators. The best two relationships he has with head coaches are Marcus Freeman and Mel Tucker. Let's see if I missed anybody else. So more than likely, you guys will see us later on tonight. If not, we'll see you tomorrow. We're supposed to have a special guest from the Super Bowl, and hopefully Malik will be back tomorrow. This is a good question. Can Jack Cohn beat Tom Brady's 40 time? I think he can. I will put a sawbuck down on that. I'll put a sawbuck down on the fact that Jack Cohn can beat Brady's 40 time. I would take Jack Cohn. I'll take Jack Cohn. So that's it for today, man. We appreciate you guys. Tap in.